So, okay, by way of an introduction, this is a PC that I bought in 2015. It was pretty high spec, or pretty good spec for gaming and everything else back then. It's an Intel i7 processor. I think it's 5th generation, which sounds like a lifetime ago now. It's a 5820K, and there's 16 gig of RAM on it, the motherboard, and the motherboard is a ASUS Z99S. So it was all good in its day, and I've changed the graphics card a couple of times to keep things running, but the CPU is bottlenecking everything now. So I've decided to upgrade stuff, and I'm going to upgrade it to, I'm not sure if you're going to see this. This is what I'm going to upgrade it to. I'll just call it out. So I'm going to use an Intel Core i5 13th generation 700K and a Rogue Strix Z790H motherboard with 32 gig of Corsair RAM, a new AIO, and a M.2 SSD, 2 terabyte. Now what I'm going to do is I want to transfer everything across. I want to transfer the system across and everything, because I don't know about you, but having had this system since 2015, I've accumulated a lot of stuff, and I do back up my data, don't get me wrong, but I've accumulated quite a lot of stuff, quite a lot of programs, a lot of games, all things set up with custom settings and favourites and all that stuff. And I just do not want to have to go through a complete new Windows install and do it all again from scratch and download everything and have to set everything back up. So I'm going to attempt to migrate the operating system and see if Windows 10, which is what I'm running, will come back up and recognise everything with the new motherboard and processor. Okay, so this is the bit where I'm going to make my new system drive. This is my M.2 drive, and I've just got a cheap enclosure to mount it in with a USB on the end. So I'm going to plug that in and then copy my existing C drive over to this new M.2 SSD, which I'll be mounting onto the new motherboard. So I'll plug this in and then we'll get on with the software part. Right, so this is the program I'm using, Disk Genius. Let's get that going. The SSD is now plugged into a USB port on the back of the motherboard, and so Disk Genius is recognising all the drives on this PC. There's my hard disk 0. This is my existing SATA SSD, which has got the C drive operating system and everything on it, and the recovery partitions and whatnot. And down here, HD7 is the new 2 terabyte drive. So what I want to do is copy this onto this so that I've got a new system drive that I can put on my motherboard, the new motherboard, with this as with a safe backup, that if I have to, put everything back to square one, put the old motherboard back in, at least this C drive won't be in a state of trying to reconfigure itself to a different motherboard. Right, so from memory, go to Tools, System Migration, and then it says select the one that you want to copy from. It's detected that I've got 2 at the moment, because I did try this out just when I first got this new SSD. So I've done it once already, but obviously the drives in the few days that has elapsed since I tried it, things may have changed on the Windows side, so I thought it'd be best, before I turn it off, I'll do it again. So this is the select the system partition. This is the one I want to copy from, so I'll select that, say OK. And it says select the target disk. The target disk for me is E. It says OS disk. If you're doing this for the first time, of course, it wouldn't have anything on it, so it might probably make it even easier to identify it because it's blank. So OK. All files will be overwritten. Are you sure you want to migrate the system to? You will. Yes, I do. There we go. So this is what it looks like. There's the existing C drive at 250 gigabyte drive. This is the new drive, but it's got a load of free space on it because it's a 2 terabyte drive, which I obviously want to use. So all you have to do, and this is where I think it's really clever, is you just drag this slider across to use, make your C drive now pretty much 2 terabytes. There's bits at either end for recovery and whatnot. So okay, that's fine, and I think I just push start. All files will be overwritten. You sure? Yes. I want to do hot migration, which is in a Windows environment. You can reboot it apparently, and it will do it from a command prompt. What the difference is, I don't know, but hot migration is fine. Hot migration, and I think it's on its way. Or do I have to push start again? No, it's doing it. So here we go, it's started. And it will take about an hour for this drive. So I'll switch this off and get back to you when it's nearly finished. Okay, so hour and 12 minutes has gone by and it is saying it's virtually finished. So in a moment I should be able to remove that SSD, sorry, that M.2.2.2, there we are, it's complete. Right, so we're back and it's finished. System migration completed. Okay, complete. So, good. And just to confirm, then here's my original operating system, disk C. I've got a data drive here and a media drive here, and this is the new one which is currently plugged into the USB port. This is the 2 terabyte M.2 drive, which I'm going to install on my new motherboard with the hopefully the working operating system on it. And that is about it. What I'm going to do just before I shut this PC down and actually get my hands dirty is create a final system restore point just in case. So I'm going to unplug the M.2 drive from the USB port and then create a system restore point and then shut the PC down, and then I'll continue with actually physically dismantling stuff. Right, so everything's powered off, PC's up on the desk, and now it's just going to be a case of removing all the power cables, graphics card and everything from this old X99 motherboard. Served me very well, so I won't bother you with all that, but I'll get on with it and catch up with you in a minute or two. So here's the case now with the motherboard and the old AIO out, which I left connected to the motherboard. I haven't disconnected the pump head from the CPU, just in case, again, if I have to put it back in again, I don't want to be having to muck about with thermal paste and that. So I took the the whole lot out in one go. Oh, so there it is. I took it all out in one go. As usual, there was one motherboard screw that wouldn't come out, and the mounting post was just spinning around underneath. But I managed to get it down to it was the last one, so it didn't make any difference. So it wasn't hold. The post just came out with the motherboard, so it was okay. So next, I'm going to clean up the case. This exhaust fan is really horrible, so that'll be the next job. And then I'll show you the new motherboard before I put it in, because I'm going to mount up the M.2 drive, which will hopefully be the system drive in a few minutes. Right, so I've got the M.2 drive and I've installed it in this slot here next to the CPU, which I'm told is the best one to put it in. I've pre-installed the CPU and two 16 gig memory sticks to make a 32 gig system. So that's it. Now I've got to bite the bullet and put it back in the case, which is now all clean and shiny. So I'll get back to you when it's in. Moment of truth. Board's in, connected everything up, checked everything. The power's onto the board. I think I've done everything. There was one connector that I couldn't connect, which one of the USB connectors for the front panel. There's not enough switches on this sockets on this motherboard, but hey ho. I've connected the one that I think is most important. So let's go. Try and boot into BIOS. Power's on. Come on, something's happening. You can do it. Right, let's hit the delete key. A new CPU installed. Please enter setup to configure your system. Press F1 to continue and take advantage. I don't want to do that. Press F1 to run setup. Oh, okay, I've got a lot of choice now. Press F1 to run setup. I have pressed F1. Oh. Well, that's not very good, is it? Press 1 to enter setup. Oh, didn't press it long enough. Oh, right, okay. I've got memory. I've got a processor. I've got 3 SATA drives, is that right? And an NVMe. Oh yeah, because that's a DVD old thing. There's my two 2 terabyte drives, and there's my new NVMe drive. Right, so I just want to check the boot sequence. Don't I? Boot menu down here. Boot menu, that's okay. That's the one I want. So save and exit, and then, oh, the other thing everyone tells you to check is make sure the CPU isn't going crazy. So obviously things are running. Hang on, what's going on here? Oh yeah, because I've only got the AIO pump running, which is meant to be running at full tilt, and this is the fan associated with the AIO on the radiators. Everything, all the chassis fans aren't connected, they're just straight on the power supply, which seems to be the way this PC was set up. Okay, I can't put it off any longer, can I? Save and exit. I haven't changed anything, have I? You've not made any. Oh no, hang on a minute. Okay, cancel. What's the other thing they say? Check disabled XMP, correct. Overclocking. It's not overclocking, is it? I don't want it to. So let's assume that's okay. Let's go. Okay. Alright. Now it's really his fingers crossed. PC's rebooting. Come on, let's go then. Ooh. That's the first little bit of Windows. I think it might be rebooting. Ooh, 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 look at that. Download Armoury Crate and Land Driver. Okay. Would you like to install Armoury Crate? I don't really want to install Armoury Crate, so I'm going to say no. I'm saying no. And I'm not touching anything for a little while. I'm just going to let this do whatever it needs to do for a little while. Right, so this is where we are at the moment. I haven't made a lot of progress. Well, I have made a lot of progress because we've booted straight into Windows. But I've got no internet access through the Ethernet port. I've got all these device problems here. Windows seems to have gone quiet in terms of doing anything, and I suppose what it really wants to do, or what it can't do, is access the internet to pull up all the drivers for this stuff. I've got drivers that I've downloaded, which I'll try in a minute, and the only other thing I was going to look at was in the settings, is it updating security? Activation. So it says Windows 10 Home, unable to reach Windows servers. So this is why I haven't had any messages about activating Windows or anything, because it can't access the internet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the PC down and reboot it. Right, so back into Windows again. I don't think I've made a lot of progress. Let's get the device manager up. And still all this stuff is saying there's trouble. So what I'm going to do is, I have got these, everything I downloaded from ASUS yesterday, all the latest drivers. I could do this Armoury Crate thing, but that surely is going to want to get to the internet, and that's what we haven't got, so I'm not going to bother with that. I'm going to try this LAN one first and see if we can't get something going. Here we go, so I'm just going to run this. See what happens. Well, blatantly something did happen, because when I rebooted the system, I think we may have made some progress. Device manager, and we've still got lots of stuff, but perhaps not quite as much as we had a minute ago. Because have I got internet? Let's just. Oh, I do. I do have internet. Okay, so let's look at Windows again. Update and security activation. Okay, so we go to troubleshoot. I recently changed hardware on this device. You need to verify your password. Okay. Well, that shouldn't be too difficult, should it? Just a moment. What's it going to do? We can't reactivate Windows because our servers aren't available at the moment. Please wait a few minutes. Okay, we'll do that then. Right, you didn't see it, but I just went round the boy again. I rebooted the PC and I went into activation again, and it said it wasn't activated, and basically I went round, followed the prompts, did the login, and it said, which PC are you currently using? So I selected the PC that I'm currently using and said OK, and it activated Windows, and here we are back at this window that says Windows is activated with a digital license linked to your Microsoft account. So I assume I'm all square again now on Windows 10, and now I've done more than I wanted to do today, but it says get ready for Windows 11, which is something I didn't have on my old PC because the processor was not supported by Windows 11. So we've moved forward on that count as well. Windows Update says we're all up to date. Just check for update to see if we can get anything else. Okay, well, I've still got all these device errors here, and I've done a bit of reading, and it says to check your BIOS on your main board, and that's something I didn't do initially. Because I've got a BIOS that I downloaded yesterday, but I didn't check it against the what was on the when I first booted it up. So I suppose that's the next thing to do. Having an updated BIOS on the board isn't going to be a bad thing if that's what's needed. Right, so here we are. What's the BIOS version? It should be there, shouldn't it? It should be staring me in the face on this page somewhere. Okay, don't know. Let's go to advanced then. BIOS version 1202. Now, what's my version? I've got a version here which is 2301. Well, that's a big difference, isn't it? So I'm going to update the BIOS. Right, so I plugged the USB in, and here it is. Here's me file. So I guess I'll select that. I haven't got BitLocker. And I'm going to say yes. And I do want to do it. Yes, I do. Okay, it's doing something. And from what I understand, this might take a little while. So I'll be back in a bit. Okay, right, so after numerous restarts, you get back to this screen. And it says before making adjustments in the BIOS, press F5. Okay, to load factory default settings to ensure smooth operation. Well, I guess that's what we'll do then. I'm pushing F5. But nothing's happening. Maybe done that, now push F1 maybe. I don't know. I pushed F5 for all I was worth. Now let's see. XMP still disabled, that's good, everything looks good. Everything seems to be normal. BIOS version 2301, that sounds a bit more like it. Okay, so let's save and exit. Not made any changes, good. Okay. Right, when this boots back up again, we'll have a look at, see that device manager scenario, see if that's improved. Here we are then, back into Windows, that's always a good sign, isn't it? And don't waste any time, just go straight to the device manager. Bollocks. So we've still got all these things that are saying this not working properly. More research required. Right, after much searching and mucking around, I realised a couple of things to do with this device driver problem that I had, as in the past tense, because I've got rid of all the issues now, and really the root cause of it all was that I hadn't installed all the drivers that I needed to install from the ASUS website, and I'll show you what I mean. Just in case ASUS downloads ends up, I'll quickly put in motherboards, Rogue, come on. Strix 798, there we go. And I go to driver and tools, as you would do, and these are the drivers that I downloaded initially. Point one is it defaults to Windows 11, and I didn't notice that, and a lot of the drivers are for Windows 10 and 11 anyway, but there were some differences. Well, there must have been, because on some of the drivers which I've reloaded, specifically when I put this to Windows 10, it now works. But the thing that really I missed was, particularly on something like the chipset, where it's like this driver here which I downloaded, great, and I didn't click this see all downloads button, and you can see there's a whole shed load of stuff, some of which may be required or is required, and some of which maybe not be required. I mean, I haven't downloaded all of these and loaded all of these. I downloaded the ones which I thought might cure my problems, and they have. So I'm not sure if you're meant to download and install all of them, but I haven't done that. And just for interest, I made a note of the ones that cured my problems specifically, because I had all these unknown device issues. The one that got rid of there was a RAID controller problem yesterday, and I downloaded the correct driver from ASUS to get rid of that. I didn't install it initially because it was one of these things where it sort of said you won't be able to uninstall this if you continue, and I thought, well, I don't want to do that then. But in order to get rid of that RAID controller error, I had to install it, so that's done. And these are the ones in particular, this management engine, Intel management engine driver, the Intel chipset driver, and the Intel serial I/O driver are the ones that got rid of all those unidentified device errors. So that's it. And then I ran CC Cleaner, which is a good little thing. And in Tools, it does a registry scan. No issues were found, and there weren't that many when I ran it. Actually, I thought it was going to be loads of stuff because of the way I've moved Windows from one machine to another and all this shenanigans, but it all seems to be alright. So touch wood, everything seems to be okay since I updated the BIOS and installed the correct drivers. There are some Windows 11 drivers that seem to be working alright on here, so I think they're pretty generic. So I'm not going to touch it anymore. That is done. So just for your information, the drivers that I installed to get rid of all those errors was as per my USB drive here, where I've got them all. I didn't install Armoury Crate because I've heard that it's a bit of a nightmare if you want to try and uninstall it and it gets its fingers into everything. So I didn't install that on purpose, although I nearly resorted to it at one point. But I installed the audio drivers. These are all from the ASUS website for the correct motherboard, blah blah blah, and it's Windows 10. And the Bluetooth drivers, the chipset drivers, the Intel management interface was needed to get rid of some of those device errors. The Intel serial I/O was definitely needed to get rid of some of those errors, and then LAN and SATA, and the software and utility thing, I didn't install that either, but I did download it. But it was another thing I thought, do I really want this on here? Would I better get it off again? So I didn't install that. The VGA drivers I have installed. I'm not sure if they did install correctly or not, or whether they were actually needed. I don't know, but can't remember now. And the wireless ones, which I installed. So those are the ones that I definitely needed to install to get rid of all those poxy errors that I had. So just out of information, I hope that's been useful. One thing I did notice when I was doing this upgrade was in trying to get everything all squeaky clean and everything after migrated everything across, and in particular looking at things like the device manager to make sure everything was all super duper, which it now is. I was looking at the Windows update screen, and this up here was trying to install an update, and it would try to install it and then fail. And what I noticed was when I started digging into the failure report, which I can't tell you what it was now, but it was a Windows 10 security update of some sort, but it wouldn't load. And when I started digging into it, it started talking about the system recovery partition potentially not having enough free space, and to increase it from 500 megabytes to 750 megabytes, I think. And I was filled with a slight bit of confidence, having used that Disk Genius right at the beginning of the process, to maybe have a play with that, and that I did. And it then loaded the software update. So I'll just show you what I did. I'm not going to, obviously I've done it already, so I can't show you. But so in my, where's Disk Genius? Disk Genius here. So if you remember, right at the beginning of the process, we set this hard drive, this solid state drive, my new one, this 2 terabyte drive, and copied over my old system drive to it, and made this great big partition so I can use it for storage data, games and all that sort of stuff as well. But it also had 2 other partitions, this ESP partition and this partition 2. And this partition 2 was about 500 megabytes, and you can see now I've increased it to 750 megabytes, which enabled that software update to load for Windows. So the way I did it, I couldn't just sort of resize the 2 partitions at the same time, i.e. make the operating disk partition smaller and the recovery partition bigger. What I had to do was do it in 2 steps. So I resized the operating system disk by just making it a little bit smaller. I didn't do the maths and make it just small enough so I could increase the other one by 250, which is why, I don't know if you can see, but there's a little bit of unallocated space here, because I obviously reduced the C drive by a little bit more than I needed, and I've decided just to leave that there for now. I can always reallocate it later. But so I decreased the C drive. How did I do it? Partition. I think I've got to select it. Partition resize. So I went into partition resize, made it a little bit smaller. Then I went into the recovery partition and resized that and made it a little bit bigger. And when I made it bigger, I actually there's a box you can type in the actual size you want it to be. So I made it exactly 750 megabyte. And I did all that. The resizing of the C drive did take a little bit of time, and it went off and sort of exited out of Windows while it did it, which was a little bit of a couple of moments, hoping it was all going to come back, which it did. And the resizing of the other drive, the recovery drive, was just did it in a couple of seconds, and that was that. As I say, and then I reloaded that security update, and Bob's your uncle. So it's probably a way of doing it if you've got that same problem with Windows 10 updates. So that's that. I hope that was useful. Cheers.